Right, we're all back. Dan's here as a guest to help us answer some questions that we got this week. We're going to fire straight into questions and then we do a bit about what we're all doing at the end, what we're all currently doing with our own physiques at the end. So first question, Lantus during a cutting phase, would you remove it from the start or would you titrate it down? Dan's going first.
Yeah, I was just saying before it cut out and Riz made a baby. It depends on the starting point of the diet where the person's nutrition is. So if the person is requiring some kind of background insulin support just to keep them somewhat insulin sensitive, because I don't like to start a diet where you're taking food, and you're getting no response out of the client at all because they're just not petitioning nutrients very well at all. So if they require it, a baseline amount, then we keep it there according to their BG levels. But if the client's not on massive amounts of food in the first place, they've started out fucking lean going into prep, then for sure, it depends on the dependency of it. But as a bias, I do like to get rid of it pretty early on. Now, my rationale for this is it's remembering that our body does produce its own insulin via the pancreas, and what all we're doing by putting exogenous insulin is just like amplifying that call. And I personally think if you've built up a tolerance over time to background insulin or whatever it is, and you become super dependent on it, all that is added noise. Like think of a road site, yeah, like they're doing maintenance on a road, and you got drills. A lot of it you go deaf. The heavier the tool, i.e. the higher the dose, the higher the sound that's going to come out. Eventually, you go deaf, and therefore you start blunting your own body's ability to position, which isn't a good place of going into a prep start. So typically, I don't want them in that situation in the first place where they're so dependent on Lantus. So I want to be in that situation in the first place where they've only got about, they've got 20 IUs in at max. I don't like going over that. I just don't. And it doesn't take much to get them down to 10. Then it doesn't take much to get them to 0 and be actually petitioning nutrients effectively having their own body's ability.
Riz?
Simple.
I'm going to have to disagree a little bit. I'll tell you why.
Go on.
Obviously, in my opinion, I'm not saying Dan's wrong, just my opinion. So obviously, if we're going to use Lantus in the back to obviously drive food, in essence, drive food. And if we're going to start into a cutting phase, we know carbohydrates are going to come lower over time. So obviously we can drive that small amount of carb harder, then we're going to be able to utilize more carb easier. So what I'm trying to say is you're getting, let's say you go from 800 carbs to 400 gram. In my opinion, you're able to drive them carbs harder, especially when you've got T4GH and steroids all playing their little part in this little circle, yeah? So I personally like to keep it in the whole way. Once we're like 6 weeks out, pull it out. Then it makes sense. That's just my view on it.
I'm pretty confident on that, and we can reference to one of the previous points we made around kind of people with obscene genetics like Samson, where they hold fullness and struggle to get in shape. So obviously we understand Lantus is a storage hormone for a skinny white boy genetics. It's fantastic. It's a bit of a game changer in terms of storing glycogen, adding a little bit of pop to physique, and just staying fuller and rounder. Now, Hilly probably doesn't know this, but last time we were dieting down, I was supposed to be running Lantus only on my high days. And I think for the first 4 weeks, I was running it daily. Okay? Now, what I noticed when I actually asked what Hilly had told me to do, the fat loss accelerated tenfold. And I think the reason for that is because you are flattening out at a much quicker rate. So obviously your body is trying to utilize those fat stores as fuel, obviously with L-carnitine and all kind of the other supplements that we use. So I kind of going what Riz said, I would actually favour it the other way around now. What I would look to do is pull the Lantus out immediately, get the body fat off, and then I would look to start trickling it in as we start to wash off fatigue and kind of replenish the physique and get a bit of fullness back in. Like Dan said, I'm also now, and me and Hilly, and we've always experimented with this, I've ran in excess of 50, 60 IUs of Lantus a day. Doesn't really make a difference to me. I think 10 to 20 is the sweet spot. But I'm absolutely confident in the fact that it was limiting my ability to burn fat at my natural rate by keeping it in for an extended period of time. The second I moved it out, I was way drier, I flattened off way quicker, but fat loss was accelerated for me personally. Now, there's probably no studies to support this, but I think in kind of what we mentioned or reference to the previous weeks, when people who have fantastic genetics that hold fullness very well, they struggle to flatten out. So they struggle to get extremely lean, because we understand to pull those really stubborn bits in, or to get the stubborn fat areas off, we have to get super flat. We know that for a period of time. And I think Lantus will stop that process. So just to conclude that, I would favour to get it out early and put it back in at that kind of, we understand you probably want to be ready around the 4 to 3 week out mark, getting ready to drop fatigue and all this sort of stuff. And I think at that point, that's where I would be looking to trickle that Lantus back in.
Yeah, I am. For me, 9 times out of 10, I will pull it more or less at the start. I like what Dan said. I like to make quite a dent in food initially. I like to get fat loss going. I like to sort of resensitize insulin sensitivity. So I like to make a fair pull at food, particularly carbohydrates, get things moving, and the ability to have a hypo when you're on Lantus and when things are going on is drastically increased when you start reducing carbs. So first, I want to remove any chance of having a hypo. Second, for me, is exactly like Dick says, and there is actually there isn't obviously science studying Lantus in a deficit, because that would never happen. But we know insulin in general and carbohydrates and whatnot blunt lipolysis. So I think that you can sort of look at the science of what insulin does and how it works and how it spikes things, and your ability to need to eat carbohydrates along with the Lantus or the insulin. It just doesn't make sense for me to have it in when you are completely fat loss focused. So the caveat to that is that if I've got a client where I run what I call pre-prep, where we might have actually started going into a clean-up phase, and technically, I hate the way people like to say, what date am I starting prep? How many weeks out am I? But say you're 22 weeks out and you've moved to a cruise at 24, I will keep it in during that part, because the drugs are coming out, so it will enhance recovery, it'll enhance nutrient uptake, it'll keep us supportive. But when I actually start, the term we don't like, dropping the hammer or pulling carbs aggressively to drop fat,
Going to war.
Going to war, I will pull the Lantus out. I just don't want anything in the background that is going to risk a hypo. And as Dex says, I am pretty confident that having it in there, for some people, maybe most, will limit or restrict or reduce fat loss. For me, at the moment, sort of weeks, say 24 out to 18 weeks out, is very much a health reset, dropping off the drugs, refreshing the body. So I'll keep it in there because our drug dose is likely down. We're likely on a cruise dose. We want the additional support for recovery, for nutrient partitioning. Once that prep cycle comes in and we've got that from the drugs, and I'm pulling food down hard for fat loss, I want to take away, as I suppose Dan's analogy is really good, any noise. For me, I would say any risk of taking things out of my control. And if Lantus is in there and it's risking particular hypos because your carbs are coming down, your insulin is going up, I just don't want that at play at all.
And Lantus hypos are a fucking bastard.
Lantus hypos are a dangerous fucking thing.
You sweat going up to the mill. You start seeing the textures in the floor change, and then
the lights. It's the lights for me. It's the flashing lights.
And you can't get out of them. Remember when I was on prep last year? I remember being sat in David Lloyd's working, and I could feel it coming on. So I went and got a glucose drink, like a Lucozade, and then I got some rice cakes and something else, and I got some. Them chocolate fucking coconut macaroons that are carbs and fats. And I thought, I'll see if I can ride this fucker out. If I can't, I'll need something with fats in. And I sat in my car for 40 minutes. Remember, lads, messaging you. Feeling like utter death. Sweating, shaking, I couldn't think. And it didn't matter what carbs I put in. And obviously, because the Lantus is at play, you're putting the carbs in, but it's just continuously pulling it down. Yeah. And then you're eating and your own instant pancreas is working. So I had to then add fats with the carbs to slow that fucker down. And again, the ball ache that caused, the extra food that I had to message AJ being like, listen, I'm really sorry, I fucked up. And I never fuck up, but I hypoed. But some of it was down, going off point a little bit. AJ liked to use Lantus with his high days, but he had his high days, remember, super low fat.
Yeah.
It was all just rice, cream of rice, there was no fat. And I was hypoing every fucking high day. And it brings back to the point, it ruined every high day. Instead of getting some little bit of enjoyment from the food and fullness, I just felt shit all high day. Because all I did was hypo all fucking day.
I was having this conversation with James Hollinshead the other day, and he was saying that, like, as he was once an advocate of insulin, but like now he understands with his genetics, because obviously he has a problem with staying full, it just accelerates the flattening phase for him. Like, he puts it in and his body just pulls at those nutrients. He doesn't think it stores very well for him. It does the opposite, like you said, Hilly. It accelerates it so much, it starts ramping through those carbohydrates where his pancreas would do enough to kind of store them. When he puts anything above that, it just rattles through the carbohydrates, so he's not filling out.
Yeah, but bro, the question was, in which part of the prep would you pull it out? But in my opinion, the first 2-3 weeks in prep, you're not really in a deficit. If you're in a proper off season, you're not really in a deficit. So you should be able to.
I don't think there's a right and wrong answer, Riz. Like, I think for you, like what you said will suit certain people. Like, and I think it's genetics, isn't it? It's who needs what at that given time, which is probably the answer to every fucking question we'll ever get.
Yeah.
I think there is an answer for each individual, you know?
Yeah, because my thought process is we're going to come down slowly, and there will be a time where we can no longer justify the use of it. But we also, like we always say, Lantus increases IGF and it increases this and using growth.
Big facts.
So in my opinion, if you're trying to preserve tissue in this phase. So in my opinion is I want all four things I want the T4, the insulin, I want the steroids, I want the fucking growth. I want everything at play.
That's where the logic comes in, Riz, of when you're actually at risk of that, of losing the tissue, like that 4 or 5 weeks out where you're really coming in, you're really lean. I think that's where it's best placed because, like you said, you're not in a deficit. You ain't losing any muscle. We know at that point where you're on 4 or 5,000 calories, you're just coming down slowly. And I think you're at minimal risk. I think there's a potential place for it, obviously, at the time where you really start to dig in, training starts to suffer, you start to flatten out too much, all that sort of stuff. And I think that's where it can be introduced. Like Healy said, is a support, I suppose.
The other thing as well is, I suppose. Sorry, go on, Dan.
I was going to say, I think it's certain bodies. Because, like, I know Lewis, Lewis, who's competing this weekend, Breed, I know how much food he requires, and it's fucking bonkers. I can imagine for somebody like that to be able to get food to stick would be really useful. And actually just get something out of it. But as I say, at the start of prep, I want to be in that situation where I'm reducing noise and the body signaling back and forth from the pancreas. It's actually hearing each other. And therefore, when you've got all your array of tools out there, everything is super clear. There's not too many variables in which you're trying to manage around. It's just trying to simplify the process.
Yeah. And I think, like what everybody, and we're all saying the same thing. Because I think us four here as individuals, we aren't people that are naturally lean all of the time. So like my client Seb, he would probably be suitable to keep Lantus on all the time because the kid just can't get fat. Riz's client that won the overall last week and it's absolutely diced. He was in a good position at the start. So guys like that are leaner, and particularly at the start, you could argue that they needed it. They could keep it in almost the whole time. Whereas I don't think any of us here, our body compositions and the way we look at the start of prep into prep would be suitable for keeping Lantus in at all. I don't think any of us would keep Lantus in. Whereas someone like potentially Riz's client, or I mean definitely Seb, like you, Riz, Deck, you both know Seb, that kid could keep Lantus. I reckon that kid would probably, arguably, it would be of benefit of him to keep it in because of his body type. He never gets fat; he just gets smaller and he gets bigger.
Riz, did your client beat that Aziz the Beast kid?
Hey.
Did your client beat that Aziz the Beast kid? Aziz? On fucking smoke, son. He's a good bodybuilder, that kid.
He's had a lot of time off there. He's not what he should be.
Alright, bro, don't be scared because you're like
Rob
Taylor's boy now, you know. Don't be scared.
Rob said himself.
He looked mega as well, though. I thought that Aziz, he looked really good. I know he's had time off, but he looked mega, I thought.
Yeah, really, he should be a lot further in his progress.
Yeah, but he's had time off, like I said. But I thought he looked awesome, personally.
Feather in the cap for your boy, that's for sure.
That's for damn sure.
Yeah, of course.
Right, next question. We answered that well, boys. I'm impressed. Does your body break down animal fats better than other fats, or does it depend on a person's metabolism?
I think it depends on what your background is, mate.
What do you mean, Riz?
As in, I don't think everyone uptakes same fat same way.
Are you basically saying black people like one sort of fats, white people like another sort of fat, Indian people like another sort of fat? Are you basically saying ghee is only applicable to brown people?
Yeah. Are
Listen,
you trying to
ghee
say
is number one.
you wouldn't break down pork fat very well? Is that what you're trying to say?
I've never eaten my whole life. No, but I am a true believer that you need to eat what your ancestors would have ate to have a higher chance of it to uptake better. there's a reason why peanut butter gives me the shit, because my family probably never ate fucking peanut fucking butter.
Riz, your sister's never been eating Greggs. Fuck off, mate.
Yeah, fucking cunts.
What foods would my ancestors eat?
Man's on the sausage rolls on the day. You never your ancestors eating Greggs.
You lot, listen, I'm trying to give informative information, okay?
I think it's not the source of the fat. I think it's the type of fat. Obviously, we understand with the monosaturates and so on, what type of fats and what fats. I think that's more applicable to how they will be used and their effects rather than kind of where they come from.
But bro, if I eat beef, I get a bit too, not bloated, but very full. If I have chicken breast with some added coconut oil, I'm not bloated at all.
Yeah, because coconut oil will bypass the gallbladder. It's an MCT.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, bro. I don't want to eat dirty fats.
It confuses me though with people who use words like metabolism and inflammation, way overused without actually understanding what they mean. Like
what the mechanism is in any way, shape, or form.
What's
metabolism
got to do with digestion or fats? Like,
but the thing is, in my honest opinion, you can't say that Deck's gonna react to, I don't know, let's just say chicken breast and olive oil the same way I would, because his body's complete, his background's different, and depending on what his granddad, grandma ate years and years ago, I think it plays a massive part. 100%.
It does, and I agree. But I think where you're on about digestion, not breaking down fats, I think where what this question is, does your body break down fats better, animal fats better than other fats, or does it depend on the metabolism? So that for me doesn't dictate and indicate a digestive thing. What I think he's saying is, can some people with a better metabolism get away with more animal fats or other fats?
Do you reckon this is just chiming into the fucking weirdos that are doing the carnivore diet all the time? And he's asking if, like, are animal fats better than added fats?
Yeah,
I suppose that's a good question. Like, well, I suppose it goes back to what Riz is going to say. It's individual, isn't it? But what would you think? Would you prefer animal fats included with the meat, or added fats and a very lean source of meat, like Riz said? And what I mean by that is how the physique will look, not how easy it is to control. Yeah. It's very easy to spoon peanut butter on, isn't it, and get the exact amount. You never really know specific with fats, do you? So how do you think that would work or look?
I know that Jansen, with a lot of his clients, is quite keen on animal fats as main fat sources, rather than added fats. I know that for a fact. I've tried it on a few people, and honestly, I just get different results, because I find that some people have, again, it goes back to not so much metabolism and your rate of which of your GI is emptying, but down to your digestion as a whole, is whether your body tolerates, say, almond butters, peanut butters, and stuff like that. With some clients, like Sam, have you seen my client Sam Courier? He looks fucking crazy. A lot of his off-season, at the start of it, switched over to actually just animal fats and protein sources with higher fat content, like eggs. And his body really did take off when he did that. But other people didn't get the same response, because I just think he doesn't digest certain added fats as well as he does that. I just think it's totally dependable on the person's digestion rather than metabolism and what they can tolerate.
I would agree, because I think no matter what the fat is, if we're talking about breaking down fats or burning fats off because it's related to the metabolism, once the fat's stored as fat, it's stored as fat. So then we're all breaking it down. So I don't think the source is relevant to how your metabolism then breaks it down. I would say what Riz is saying and what Dan is saying is that it's very much about what your digestion can handle, and that's where you get your fats from, which that's going to
be your best assimilation rate of that food.
Yeah, which again can be a genetic thing, which then is going to potentially, at least half of that, come back to what Riz is saying. It's what you were genetically predisposed to digest better.
You muted yourself, big dog.
Oh, sorry, I was vaping. Now, what I find is, in my opinion, when you use fats, like, I don't like peanut butter and almond butter anymore. Not saying for all clients, for a lot, because when you add it in, it adds fibre, and I don't think it's a pure fat source. It's comes with a lot of other shit in it too. Yeah, when I would say olive oil, macadamia nut oil, coconut oil. Coconut oil's got to be my favourite. My client that competed on the weekend, we only used coconut oil for the last 5 weeks, and he got better and better and better and better, and stomach got flatter and flatter. I pulled out anything that I thought was going to cause any sort of inflammation, and it just got better and better. I just think a lot of them other foods, they just cause too much. I don't know what it is. They just cause too much stress. Give a certain look I don't like.
Yeah, I'm doing 3 beef meals a day now. Not a fatty source. I'm doing one's 5%, the rest are 10%, so a 90-10, and I definitely feel a bit fuller from it. I certainly feel more satiated because it's my second meal of the day and then my last meal of the day as well. In that last meal definitely helps me feel satiated. I sleep a little bit, I go to bed a little bit fuller, and I definitely enjoy it more than chicken, that's for sure.
AJ had me doing that, didn't he?
Yeah.
AJ was big on a lot of beef. At one point in my rest days, he had me eating almost a fucking kilo of the bastard a day, which was hard work. But there is a lot of people, anecdotally, that do feel beef does tend to give you a more fuller look, or you feel better. But I wonder again, thinking outside the box, is that with an increased iron content, giving you an increased cell count? Like, there's so much where people think that things are bro science when actually there could be a scientific geeky reason for it as well.
Yeah.
It's got more creatine.
Yeah, like if you don't eat any red meat and then you all of a sudden eat a kilo of it 3 meals a day, that is going to have a biological impact on some sort of stuff. But it's like what we've all just been saying, it all ends up swinging back round to digestion. Like, I like to use almond butter or nut butters with people that need the fibre. For me, peanut butter, almond butter ruins my guts. I'm a big fan of cashew butter because it's low in fibre, so it doesn't seem to upset my digestion, whereas I can feel almond butter on a peanut butter in my stomach. Some people are completely fine on all of them, and as we all keep saying in different ways, digestion rules fucking everything, doesn't it? Absolutely everything.
I'll tell you what, any of you motherfuckers tried pistachio butter?
Yes.
It looks so nice.
That shit is crack cocaine in a jar.
It's more expensive than crack cocaine, that's why.
Yeah, I know, mate. It's dangerous. Dangerous.
Right, question. Right, here's one. The worst cycle you've run, e.g., lack of benefits or terrible side effects?
MPP.
MPP for deck, as we know.
I've had a few. I've had a few, and why Hilly's trying to fix me. Usually the ones
trying to fix him.
Yeah, usually the ones that have been too long exposures of Tren in too high dosages. MPP I can't tolerate.
How high are we talking, Dan?
That's what I was
For
going to
me,
say.
it doesn't take long. It doesn't take a lot, mate. To be honest, it's exposures to like 300 milligrams, 400 milligrams for more than 12 weeks, and it's not a good compound for me in that way. 100 milligrams, fantastic.
How do you feel, Dan?
I just start hiccuping, mate, and I can't not hiccup. It just goes on and on and on. It's not.
I
fun.
swear, as long as I've known you, you've had problem with fucking hiccups.
On and off, mate, but like as soon as you get it under control and it's a toxicity thing, I'm absolutely fine. I don't get it. Like Hilly knows that back in the diet I hadn't because we had exposure to some orals there, and it's just a concoction. And when I rebound out, when food goes up and Tren's still in at the same time, that's like the spell that will bring it all together. So we know that now, but I haven't had anything since.
What is that? Is that the toxicity fucking with your esophagus, which is causing you to, or the stress of it causing you to hiccup?
So I did know the actual reason, but it's kind of a histamine response that makes a diaphragm go into spasm. I say hiccup, but it actually feels kind of different. It's just your diaphragm will spasm for 3 days straight. You don't sleep, nothing. It's horrible.
Nah.
Yeah, it really gets you down when you have it. Like, you can't hold a conversation for shit. But usually the ones that are high in orals, like if I do Winstrol, Halo, Superdrol together for too long, fuck it, I look incredible. Like I never look good, but I look good when I use that. But I can't do it for long times. I just can't, man. That prep, when was it? In the last prep, I used all three, and it was just for too long. It was show to show and trying to get to the uni. And my body didn't hold out, and then I suffered after. Diuretics don't help either when they're in the mix.
No.
Yeah.
Riz knows about that.
Where's cycle is?
2019, went Hilly, I want to get massive. And he goes, all right, we'll do he was like, all right, so he said this about 15 times. So we did Tren Ace, MPP, and Test E, because I couldn't use Test Prop. And then we added some Superdrol in. And within like 2 weeks, I was up like 15 pounds or some shit. And at this point, I went Hilly, I goes, I can't walk because my nipples hurt. That's why I blame him for my guy, the prick. And he goes, no. He goes, you want to wait and get your bloods done because we want to see the data. I goes, fuck you. I'm using the K-bar and I'm using the tamoxifen. That's the time mentally I felt the most unstable in my life.
I warned you about the Tren and MPP mix, though. You were like, fuck it.
219 hours.
Yeah, I remember saying to Tia, I goes, give me your phone. I'm going to check your messages with Facebook. And I was going through shit before I'd even met her. I'd lost the plot, and then Hilly said something to me, and I goes, all right, bro, I don't want to talk to you anymore. And I just, and he messaged back, he goes, you're gonna just air me then, or blank me? And I was like, yes, don't talk to me. And it took me like 2 weeks to get back to normal.
Imagine Riz more volatile than he already is.
I know.
Bro, honestly, do you know that feeling? That feeling of where you're so paranoid. I would go home and I would talk conversations that I'd had with people like, did I speak to Dan wrong? Did I speak to Deck wrong? And then it's weird. It's like a second guess. I second guessed everything.
Bro, I get that from like an eighth of cocaine. I don't get that from fucking steroids.
Yeah.
Who am I talking to now?
I think it was a combination of the 19 Ors, bro, 100%.
I warn everybody against that. The Tren and MPP is just not a combination of drugs that
but if you are someone who can get away with it, the results are pretty fucking nuts. Like, I got a client, an ex-client, Josh DeRose. He was one of those guys where his bloods just do not skew. Like, one of those, like, they just don't. Mate, put him on that. I think he was 22 pounds up in the first push used it. And it wasn't mad dosages. It was like 150 tests, 200 MPP, but it really changed the way his physique looked for sure.
Because you've got so much strong shit going on.
Yeah.
I don't really get sides from drugs, particularly. So I've never really had anything bad. The only things that I can pinpoint out was when I tried pushing Primo up high. 600 mg was fine. When I went to 800 mg, I got hiccups that Dan's talking about. And I remember I was in either Manchester or Liverpool or somewhere with Sharp. And I thought it was a fizzy drink that set it off. But I'd just got to 800 mg 2 weeks before. And I started hiccuping when we were out and about. And it felt like I was choking. When we got back to the hotel, I couldn't sleep. I had to get it to rub my back all night. I was like, It was the worst experience ever. 600 mg was fine, but 800, just that up to 800 mg, like Dad said, it didn't stop for 48 hours. I couldn't walk, I couldn't talk. I was just all the time. And then what was interesting was it was just around the same time that Dusty Hanshaw had his issues.
Yeah.
By all accounts, he was running, I believe, a gram of Primo.
He was. That's right. Yeah.
Then that was, and I think that was part of the club. Yeah.
Hilly, it's funny you say that because my hiccups, they actually got kicked off. Basically, what happened was I did 2019 British as a junior. Then they had the Universe in the April, and I did a very short off season in which I was on cycle for, came off for only 4 weeks. Then I went and prepped for the uni, but because of COVID, it got cancelled. So Jordan at the time said, right, cool, we rebound because my bloods were actually good. We rebounded, and again, it was the mixture of bumping food with Tren still in, exposure Tren, but also high primer. I was on probably, if I remember rightly, it was probably about 800 to a gram of primer with 300 Tren. And it's the concoction of the food and whatnot. And what you're saying about choking, that is literally what it's like. Like horrible. It feels like your throat is like that small when you're trying to swallow food as well.
Yeah. And I know it was directly the Primo dose because I wasn't taking Tren. There was nothing else that changed. It was a couple, probably 3 years ago or 4 years ago when everybody was going on high Primo, this high Primo. So I was like, right, well, now we've been getting lab tested and we know that Primo is Primo. I'll taper it up. And I went 2, 4, 6. Felt great. And it was literally 2 weeks after the bump from 6 to 8. And we were in whichever city it was, and at the actual trigger, we'd gone somewhere and I got a fruity cider, I think it was like a recording or something, and these hiccups just started. And we had to go back to our apartment or a hotel because I couldn't stop. And I just remember like sitting in the bed, lying down, and it was I thought I was going to choke. I didn't dare go to sleep because I thought I might choke in my fucking sleep. That's how bad it was. It was awful.
The only time I had that was off Primo.
Same thing, yeah. And like Dan says, there's I know there's that potential mechanism and it's doing something with your esophagus, but there has to be a trigger that drug's doing, because we are not the only ones that report that same fucking effect once the Primo gets to a certain dose. And then the only other thing was I tried Ment, and within like a week of taking Ment, both my nipples blew up. I was up about 20 pounds and I felt like absolute fucking death.
I will say it was one of the best drugs I used, Tren, but someone who is predisposed to my mentality should not run that longer than 10 days.
Yeah.
Because you'll be in jail for murder or serious assault. Like, it is 1 week out, I'm telling you now, that shit will pull you through fucking anything for that training session. You'll die for the rest of the day. But it was a fantastic drug, but I would not like to be running that for longer than 10 to 14 days, because there'll be a prison sentence at the end of it, that's for sure.
Yeah, the week before the deadlift, I used Testosterone before the deadlift, and I was using Testosterone, Trenbolone, Superdrol, and Halo, and then the whole week, hey, I pulled 400 kilos. That's happened.
He's crying, mate. He's crying.
Justified. It's justified.
Yeah, the week after that, I had the hiccups, but I think in part it was setting it up to happen, and then the CNS dump from the pull then just kicked it off as well. But with Testosterone, it's the one thing I pinned in myself, and I literally a minute late I could feel myself bubbling. Like, it's scary. It's scary, man.
Same as Tren, exactly the same.
Oh,
Like, I would say the onset's like 5 minutes. You pin that pre-workout, like you know it's in you, like within 5 minutes straight away.
I remember putting Tren in the first time a long time ago, and I had to make classic weight, and I ended up having to pull it because my weight wasn't coming down, but I was looking better and better. I was just getting harder and leaner and better. And I remember telling my mates, and they still laugh about it to this day, I remember I would feel like I was invincible in the gym. And I'd be driving home and I'd start putting like Evanescence or some depressing shit on.
Yeah.
And then by the time I get home, I'd be like, I need a cuddle, babes. The girl I was seeing, I was like, and I'd be lying on the couch cuddling like the biggest come down, as if I've just done 5 days in a beat.
That's it. You just crash, man. You just want to do very and it does stomp your appetite a bit as well. So it's kind of handy for that last week as you're running in.
It's one of the best drugs you can use, I think, in peak week actually, as long as people can handle the sides.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's that question. Next question, boys, is part 1. Thoughts on using DHB in place of Tren in a prep to avoid sleep issues?
It really ain't the same.
Also, it's pretty common that people have insomnia issues and night sweats as well with DHB. It's a very similar side effect. Quite a few people have said the same thing to me, but I don't think I don't believe you get the same like skin texture change from DHB as you do Tren, but I certainly think you get the performance benefits from DHB as you do with Tren. So I think you kind of like I think they work well together, but obviously like Hilly said last week, they really amplify the side effects to Tren. So if that's you, it's probably not the best case. But for me, DHB and Tren together is the one. And that Pro Pharma DHB, pipless.
I've been pinning it everywhere. It's been pinned it in my quad yesterday, right at the top. No pain.
I need to get to that. I'm interested on Dan's thoughts. Are you there, Dan?
Dan's the DHB man.
Is he having problems or can he hear us? Dan, can you hear us?
That is a man that has lost his sound.
Dan.
He's lost his sound.
yeah. Sorry, guys.
He can hear us.
His sound.
Change your speaker output.
Oh, hang on, I can hear him.
Change your speaker output to headphones.
I don't know technology. I'm not Asian. Fucking hell.
Fuck off. Fuck off. He's such a cunt.
You work call centres. I don't fucking know, do I? Jesus. Is it right if I do it without earphones, mate? I don't know.
Mate, Risky gave you 1,000 megabyte broadband. Did you not know?
There's actually no echo. Listen, I checked today. 580 megabytes, brother. You mad?
Well, you said 1,000. That's definitely a fucking bold claim.
Yeah, but obviously, 1,000 is the threshold, and obviously, I don't want to break the national grid around here, bruv.
Right, Dan, you're back online, Dan. Can we hear you?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Right. Thoughts on using DHB in place of Tren in prep?
Why not? If you
Yeah.
if you can't use Tren for any kind of reason because it goes beyond like its reasonable function for you, DHB you can. I see it as a really suitable replacement. Why not? You know, I don't think there's rules. I think you've just got to go by what you feel and perform on best, and you're getting a similar result.
Yeah, and I knew I would agree with Dan there. I think, and I really want to test this with myself at some point in a prep because I struggle with sleep as soon as Tren comes in. Doesn't matter whether it's 100 meg, 200 meg, or 600 meg. My sleep just goes to shit. And I would be, and that definitely hampers, however you want to say it, my prep. So in those instances, like Dan says, where Trenbolone does give some of us more sides than other, I am not impressed with DHB at the moment in terms of what it brings to the party. I wonder if, like Dan says again, in my instance, for me personally, because I do get bad acid reflux from it, because it does fuck with my sleep drastically, would actually DHB be a much superior alternative for me as an individual, and then just drop some end training for the last 10 days,
Yeah,
as we were saying.
Yeah. Prep. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, because me and Dan suffer pretty much the same sides or the same issues in prep. We tend to get this hiccup issue, acid reflux issue, sleep issue, and I was watching a podcast the other week with that fucking thingy Stu, you know, the American guy. There's like 5 of them doing a podcast, yeah, and they were all saying there's certain people that think actually either pulling Tren out 4 or 5 weeks beforehand, which I've done with some people myself.
Good results, didn't you?
Yeah, will have a positive effect on the look because it brings sleep back. But they were all like, which one of us is going to try it? And all 5 of them were like, not me.
Yeah.
Because we're so triggered and designed to have Tren in there. And where before Tren must be in from 8 weeks or 10 weeks, that was just every cycle you saw. Now in the last 4 years, it's totally acceptable to put Tren in at 150 mgs at 16 weeks out and 12. I've got some clients, if I don't bring Tren in at 12 or 14 weeks out, they're like, what's going on? Like, it's normal to bring Tren in, you know? And I just think we're all so built to that it must be in prep that nobody wants to dare do a prep without it. And like, I've 3 clients this year, one last. I did pull it out of 4 weeks where I would never have normally done. And I am pretty confident that for those, there were classic and physique guys where I was trying to get a fresher look. So I think that it made a lot of sense for them. But I think ultimately it would probably make sense for others as well. And again, the beauty of Tren for me is you're not going to lose any muscle on it. It increases your metabolism. It helps you burn fat and all that sort of shit. But if you've done your due diligence, if you're in the right place at 4 weeks out, you don't really need those benefits. And then bring it in terms of the focus now on freshening the look and being in your best place to run into the show. Pulling it 3 or 4 weeks for most makes sense. But if I was 4 weeks out and someone said pull Tren, I'd be like, absolutely not, kid. But logically thinking, like Dan was saying, for me and him, with the sides we get, DHP is probably a better alternative. And actually, I'd probably bet would bring about and it will for Dan because we'll end up doing it. I'm pretty confident about that. From the last diet we did, the shit show that Dan's sleep goes to so early on, I'd argue he might be the only person I've come across that's actually worse than me in terms of how earlier he suffers from it. I mean, I was running on 3 or 4 hours sleep from 8 weeks out. We were very early into Dan's diet and his sleep was going. And ultimately, once that sleep starts to go, we can all suffer through it because what us 4 do good and what a lot of people like us in bodybuilding, we thrive off the suffering. But that's part of the point. That's part of the problem, or if not our main problem, is instead of thinking, well, maybe should we drop the Tren? Maybe should we do something else? It's like, no, we know the Tren's good and we can fucking suffer, so we'll go without sleep. And it's only to detriment to us, which we've all experienced in the past, every one of us.
The thing is, lads, this is the truth. You can't handle the Tren. The sport ain't for you, lads. You need to go.
Prep without Tren is like sex with a condom. It's not really the same. It don't feel right.
Well, I don't know whether DHB would counter that. That's it. Even with that, and then maybe I don't know. But yeah, it's definitely worth a thought. And I do.
How high have we all taken our DHB doses up, Dan?
Hands ran out of room.
Definitely, yeah.
It's an interesting concept, isn't it? It's kind of like what we said with the Lantus. Like, if you're getting to that point 4 or 5 weeks out, like, and you're not running something like, say, Primo as an example, which obviously has a fantastic affinity for nitrogen retention. Like, if you're trying to, you've got the fat off, you're very dry, and you're trying to freshen up that look and get that fullness, roundness to the physique, like we mentioned with the Lantus, like, is it a potential could be swapped out with something like Primo or to keep the DHB in the background to give you like the aggression and the training positives without all the toxicity from the Tren? And then the Primo obviously will drive the nitrogen retention in, and you should get a much fuller look, assuming you're not using Primo. So what I mean?
Next question. Oh, there's a part 2 to this one. It was just a follow-on from that, because you would still then get the positive nutrient petitioning and training performance, which we've covered. So we've covered all that question. Yeah. That was... there was one question that's nothing to do with related, but it's one of my clients' favourite sport to watch in the Olympics.
I like the... I'm not going to say it.
Gymnastics for me. I'm a huge gymnastics fan.
I like the Paralympic, especially you know the wheelchair rugby.
Yeah,
that shit is lethal, bro.
Fucking hell!
I didn't even know that was a thing.
Oh, where's Deck, what's your cycle at the moment? Give me questions. Give me exciting what you're doing.
I am running 600 test, 150 Tren, 120 DHB, and 400 EQ.
Nice. I need to bump my test up. I have just started feeling. So I've been on 420 test, 200 DHB, 300 mass, 253 EQ, and I was fine. And I've just hit week 5, which is obviously when the EQ is really gripping my estrogen down. And this last 2 weeks, when you get like a dull ache in your knees when you're mooching about on your elbows, just sort of creeped into that stage. So I'm going to ramp my test up from 400 to 800. And I've started putting my test base back in. I am such a fan of test base.
You love that shit, don't you?
Oh, honest to God, as soon as I put that in, like my training session, the focus, I just feel good all day. My mood's better.
That's not like we.
Sorry, Dad, you're really quiet. Hey, Riz, can you turn him up? Yeah, I think Riz can do the volume for you, though. I'm not sure. I might be mistaken.
That's better.
Get closer. I can't see her.
Oil-based, yeah. I wouldn't use anything water-based me at all. I tell a lie. Someone sent me some of the ROM water-based one, and I started using it because I was out of the oil one I had. And every time I was jabbing it, I was like, please don't get an abscess. Please don't get an abscess. And after 4 jabs, I just sat and looked at myself and I thought, what the fucking hell am I doing here?
Ask him.
Romana said, has she got to do cardio tomorrow morning?
Yes, she does.
Yes.
Yes, she does.
Okay.
Yes, she does.
And she said you have to get her a Frenchie.
Yeah, tell her to do cardio. 45 minutes. 45 minutes, 150 HR.
Yeah, oil-based dad.
I was getting terrible.
Yeah. I will only use the oil base. Like I say, I got some of the water. And to be fair, I didn't even really get any bad pip from the water. It was just every time I was putting it in, I was watching myself do it.
Yeah.
And I was, please don't. And I just thought to myself, what am I fucking doing here? Like, everybody that I know that's had bad abscesses that needed cutting out was all from water-based shit. And I just thought, what am I doing? So,
what even was the question? What was your cycle?
There wasn't one without the question, so I was just asking what everybody's doing.
Riz, show us your tits.
My tits are right now, bro. Sometimes it's hurting a little bit because the scar tissue is breaking.
Is it still there?
When I did this, when I initially had the gyno done, and I did this, I could feel like the scar tissue like here. And I was like, I've got gyno. But it's not. It's because they cut quite a... No, I don't do them things, bro. My nipples look sick. My nipples look sick. I don't do them things. That's haram, bro.
We're out of questions. Do you want to cover any actual bodybuilding shows? What about the Dubai fucking pros? Anybody watch it? Got any opinions on it?
Yeah, she looks sick.
I just can't understand the inconsistency of the judging. Is just really starting to piss me off, to be honest. Like, I don't get the whole. You've had 4 shows with interchangeable competitors with different winners. Now, Beirut looks absolutely absurd, and I can fully understand why he won. But in terms of balance, I don't see how Nathan's not winning that. I don't see how Bonac beat him after Nathan beat him last time. It doesn't make any sense. I actually thought this was the best Nathan we've seen. I think he was full, but I think he had less distension in his obliques because that's where when he eats a lot of food, you can see it. I thought his waist looked slimmer as has been. I just think Bonac, when he stood still, his body just looks a little bit of a mess. Does that make sense?
Yeah. He doesn't have a nice floor, does he?
Yeah.
He's a lot older than them boys as well.
I don't think Bonac's ever had a nice floor. I just think he used to have a lot more muscle, which gave him a great freak factor, and his condition's always been nuts. But I think now it's a little bit downsized. The lack of flow and the appeal to the look isn't still there for me. But there's some side shots he looks nuts. His condition is nuts, and he does have those body parts. But I think Bruce was still the winner for me. Like, he looked nuts, and I think in terms of ticking every box, for me personally, he ticks more boxes.
In the side shot, he's disgusting.
But when he stood relaxed, man, like there's a video of him stood still at the back. He looks like a fucking statue.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
That's what he needs.
You say he's 31?
Yeah, I don't think he's older. I think he's 30, 31, like Dan says, yeah.
That's mad. How shit are
If he brings those quads up to match his fat ass, he is going to be a handful for a lot of people because he can pose as well. Like, he really does pose well. Like, it flows nice, controls himself well on stage. His ass is a joke. He just needs to get that quad sweeping off or popping off the hip a little bit, then he's going to be up there.
And he's always on the money, like you say. He looks statuesque in terms of how crisp and nailed he is.
Do you know what's mental? Did you see that? Oh, carry on, Dan. Sorry. Did you see that shot of the top 5 and Rubio was on? For that man to look that big next to 4 of the other biggest human beings on the planet, it is fucking absurd. Like, he literally was like, take your kid to work day. Like, he made them all look like children. It's crazy.
Yeah, but it's not always a size game, my brother.
I know, but it looks cooler, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's got ugly physique.
I think he's got some sick shots, man. That's what I think.
You reckon?
Yeah.
No, I agree.
Yeah. Has to be.
But you're right. When you have that level of muscle mass, it almost blisters like the muscle fibers. Like, it becomes very smooth. Like,
blurs the detail.
Yeah, you get like that nice vascularity and that sort of stuff. But like, there's just no. It's kind of like the Ramy situation, wasn't it? Like in the quads, obviously removing the 9 tons of oil he had in his sweeps. But like, when the muscle just gets that big, it just doesn't have that crisp look. Like, it'd be interesting to see what he looked like if he flattened out, or if he could fucking flatten out. But I did think
he's a mass monster, but he's not like a fucking Marcus Rule mass monster. He's got a different muscle.
Marcus Rule was fucking sick, mate. When you look back at his videos, the dude was a fucking joke.
And like Dan says, I don't think he's ever going to get those deep cuts or that separation that the other one's got. I look at his legs, and he's peeled and he's vascular, but there is no cuts. You can't see the different flows in the muscle, the lines, and I don't think that's ever coming.
He will get hard.
Do you think that's because he's so black?
No. What did you say, Riz?
No. Sometimes when some people are so dark and so black, honestly, it's very hard to see sometimes the lines.
I think it's almost exactly as Dan described, actually. Everything looks like it's that stretched because there's that much muscle. They just, like when I look at his legs, there's no fat there. There's loads of vascularity, like Dex says, and like everything's there, but there just seems to be that much muscle blown up. There isn't. Do you know some people, you can look at the lines and it's like, you could just pour a bag of whiff on top and you'd have loads of different lines.
Yeah.
There's none of that. He's got no etches of cuts.
You know what it looks like? You know when you have a massive leg day, like your legs look bigger, but they don't look better?
Yes.
His whole body looks like that.
Yeah.
Like, it looks like it's full, it's just pumped all the time. Like, there's no like dryness to it, crispness. It's just like swollen everywhere. Completely agree.
Yes, he was. Yeah, it's a good example. Well, that's it with questions, boys. Everything else, are we going to call it a good hour podcast?
We'll do a few more. Is there no more questions?
No, that's all I got.
We've got a couple.
Yeah, are you getting them, Deck? Get them out, kid.
Tips for managing sleep in the heat.
AC machine.
Argos AC machine.
AC machine, $299. Best thing I ever bought in my life.
Riz uncle got the hookup, bro. Go in a little corner store. He's got 15 of them.
15 of them.
Good idea.
Yeah.
I can't sleep if I don't eat before bed. That sounds weird. I have to eat before I go to bed.
Yeah, me.
Yeah.
I have
to before I go to bed. Something I found in my house is if I keep all of the upstairs bedroom doors closed so the heat can transfer from room to room, that seems to drag. I couldn't believe actually how much that kept the temperature down in my house upstairs in the bedroom, instead of it all flowing from room to room. So the question, Deck?
Yep. Thoughts Thoughts, or do you have any experience of the use of BPC 157 and TB 500 in aid of nerve irritation or damage? No, not. I have no idea.
Dan might know more. I know Dan's used TB a fair bit.
Yeah, I've never read anything on it either. And because there's two different things, isn't there? Sometimes like sciatic can be caused by irritation from the nerve, and that sometimes can be inflammation. And like Dan says, what these drugs are, I think sometimes where people get confused, they are unbelievable anti-inflammatories. But outside of that, so if the nerve is getting irritated and you think it might be damaged, then the reduction of inflammation may help. But if the nerve is actually damaged, I can't see the peptides doing anything at all. Some of the things I hear people think that TBC or BP are going to help with is mind blowing.
Piece of tissue.
Yeah.
Then
Exactly. Yeah, it's people seem to think that they can take BPC 157 for fucking everything at the moment, and I'm like, listen, that is the drug just doesn't do everything on the fucking planet, unfortunately.
Injectable alkalinity will fix it. Just take that insert.
Yeah, that's what I do. I just send them the Engineering Muscle website. Buy it on there, kids. Off we go.
Another one, Deck?
Yeah. Is it possible? I need to reword this because he's written like a retard. Is it possible that a weaker muscle group will just not grow genetically?
100% bollocks.
I don't know. I think a muscle can have a specific shape which you cannot change. And I think like if you're comparing apples to oranges, so if you're looking like Rami's legs, which are full, complete, sweepy off the hip, fantastic teardrop VMO, vastus lateralis, and then compared it to like Riz's square legs, like he's never gonna have Rami's legs, is it?
Listen to me.
He's never gonna have Rami's legs. No matter what you do or how big they get, they're never going to have that like balloon shape if that's what you're aspiring to look like. Does that make sense? So I think it's within the shape of the muscle, but I think it is bollocks. I think every muscle will grow as long as you are training it correctly. The boxes.
Yeah, it's a bit like Dex pecs. Like he's trained them really hard for the past 4 years, but they look the fucking same.
Exactly.
Fucking shit.
I actually asked this same question. I actually asked this question myself.
I think scientifically, every muscle has the capability to grow. Like muscle just has a capability to grow. I do wonder if some people's skeletal mechanics, the way their bodies are set up, just genetically creates a limitation for a certain muscle to grow. Maybe, do you know, if someone's because we've all got different limb length, different abilities. So if someone's genetic structure limits their ability for the muscle to contract, because I do know some pretty advanced guys who you can look at who I think. You've got all of the knowledge, you train your ass off, and they continue to have a lagging body part that just doesn't seem to grow no matter what they do.
I think it's connection, bro.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though, because it must be a connection issue. Is it a nerve connection issue, or is it just something to do with their genetic structure that maybe means that they aren't able to connect it as efficiently as they should?
Yeah.
Because there are, we can look at some pros and it's like, listen, come on, you should have fucking better legs by now. Like, you're not a pussy, or you should have better arms. But people that you do seem to get some people that I'd like to say myself with calves, but I've never given them the attention because my calves are shit. But there is some pro bodybuilders out there, or there is some advanced guys that we can look at that always seem to have a body part that's just off. And it's like, surely that can't be the way he's training because everything else is fucking great and he knows how to train. So I do wonder if for some people, maybe there is. And when I was going the long way around it, saying structurally and genetically, because I didn't just want to say it's a connection thing, but it is a connection thing. What I'm thinking of is why can't they connect with it? There must be something stopping them connecting with it because they're connecting with everything else.
The one thing I want to say on that is as well. I remember Dex spoke about this before, and I disagreed with him at the point, but he's right. Sometimes I would do stuff that would make my pec feel better, as if I do my arm like this, I can feel my whole pec actually activating. But if I just do the conventional like that, I don't really feel my pec as much. But my pec's got better since I started doing more Smith pressing. Before I was doing everything close grip, because I thought because my pec's popping out, it's working more. Yeah, but it didn't bring more results.
This is when we were talking about the sideways chest press, wasn't it? It's like it's like tensing your bicep isn't going to make it grow, but like it's that lengthening of the fibers or the stretching of the fibers, which obviously is going to promote growth.
Another one. I've actually got a couple more as well that I didn't see.
I've got anything. Mine. We've answered the majority of what I've got in some degree.
One of the best training tips I ever got was when I watched Dave Crossland's thing on arm training. My arms are still wank, they always will be, but And I messaged Dan. I goes, Dan, send me a fucking arm day, will you? Dan goes, yeah, you can have this. I've done this design, this one, whatever. And Dan goes to me as well. What Dave said, he goes, bring your arm. So I would do this, yeah, and I'd finish the rep there. Dave goes, bring your arm all the way to the top. And bring it all the way to the top where the ROM physically finishes. Don't get to here and tense it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd get there and I'd double bicep it.
That's the same thing you were saying about pec, isn't it? Like you're curling your wrist over to feel that when actually you just want the full ROM.
Yeah, I want the full ROM. Now I do the full ROM. My arms fucking get a lot of mud on me.
So drive your feed the horse.
Have you ever tried Tyranobol? And if so, thoughts and best way to utilise it?
Never used
Fantastic oral. Fantastic.
I've used it with some clients. I find it, and I don't, there's a bit raw science to this. I find it seems to have a great performance boosting effect, but I don't seem to see a lot of visual change from it.
I think a lot of it's fake as well, Hilly, because it's not very popular.
No, yeah. But when I've used in the past, and it sounds silly even saying it, but I noticed a real good performance increase, but I didn't seem to notice any increase in sort of pumps or the way I looked or the rate at which I was growing or whatnot. It just seemed to be more of a performance drug for me. I don't really get this question, but am I just being a pussy and do I need to up cardio and drop calories further? I'm eating a BMR now. If you are not losing weight, you're being a pussy. You need to do more cardio and drop your calories down. It's just a simple answer.
People are actually scared of doing cardio in this day and age. And I watch, I'm not going to mention any names as much as I love to. These bodybuilders on Instagram, I watch them do cardio. There's a fucking reason they don't get in shape. You can't be reading a book on a stepper and be intense enough that you're actually going to be burning any fucking calories. Like, you can't be sat on your phone or chatting to your mate. Like, it doesn't, like, I am caked with sweat when I finish cardio. Half these other dudes look like they just walked in. It's mental.
Yeah. The couple of people that I know that compete around here, I see them in the gym doing cardio, and every time you see them on stage, they look like a sack of shit.
Yeah.
And it's been and for me, it's a mindset thing. Most people that train hard do everything hard.
Yeah.
They put the same effort into everything. Like, for me, I know that it is detrimental to go too hard at cardio at certain times. But I also know that if you are not getting off, whether it's an incline treadmill or a stepper or a cross trainer or a bike, if you are not soaked in sweat, you haven't done how you should do. Yeah. And that doesn't mean you should be jogging. It doesn't mean that you should be huffing and puffing and panting. But you should have worked up a good fucking sweat. You should have been getting at it to a certain extent.
I actually find it hard to do. I have to take Turbo for a walk because if I do cardio at home on the treadmill, Rocky comes on and I start to run. I start to run because I get gassed up. Yeah, I get gassed up and all that blood sport comes on the telly and I'm like, fuck, I need to run. And I just got myself.
No. Yeah. Completely agree with that.
I can't even lie to you lot. Yeah, I swear to God, Romana ran at me on the weekend to give me a hug. And I felt like I'd been hit by a bulldozer. She is fucking dense. I looked down and I thought to myself, please don't jump. And she just hugged me and I thought, what the fuck? Yeah. It's like a bulldog. It's like Turbo, like fully forces like it's out for the cat. And I was like, what the fuck, man?
She turned up at registration.
She's like a brick, the Italian guy.
Yeah. Gnarliness.
Because she's so compact.
It's such a sticky position for a female, isn't it? In terms of like what you have to do to get to that point. Like it's so much, isn't it? Like going from figure, physique, or bodybuilding. Like what she'd have to do. She's basically there, isn't she, in certain shots? And it's like, do you then push through to actually compete in bodybuilding and get a fair chance? Like wider clavicle. Yeah.
And she hasn't
fling that turbo jacked in those bad boys.
Question: diet, specifically fat loss, is the down regulation of metabolism actually a thing when dieting?
100% when you're very, 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 very fucking lean.
That's why you take T4 and T3 the whole fucking way.
Yeah, it's a scientifically proven thing. As you diet, your metabolism will slow down. That is just the way the body works to protect itself. The last one, I'll read the question out and we can try and decipher it. If thyroid recovery is slow on 100 micrograms of T4, would it be beneficial to add 25 micrograms of T3? Can anybody think what that means?
Does it
I
mean
think the
not enough
person-
T4 is turning into T3?
I
As a
think what they're
person,
basically trying to say is they're trying to get T3 to optimal level because it's taking their endogenous T3 to restore, I'm assuming. So they're saying, should I just chuck some exogenous in? That's what I'm assuming what they're saying.
No, but when you take T4, certain amount is obviously converted. So
Yeah,
what I
so
think he's trying to say is,
they're
Sounds
losing
like
it.
Yeah.
no, I think what they're trying to say is, I'm taking my T4 and I'm not getting my T3 levels are still a bit low. Should I then supplement with T3
Yes.
to create a higher T3 and keep the T4 there? Or what you could do is add more T4
That's
and
what I
it'll
was gonna
convert
say.
into
Grab
maybe
the
more
T4 up.
T3. That's what I think he's trying to get at.
More effective.
Really, is that true?
Yeah.
I'm going to split mine up.
In thyroid clinics, like proper thyroid clinics, they especially abroad, they use something called I'm a thyroid donor, or there's another
That's right,
one.
yeah.
And there's like 10 of them, and it might be like 3.4 T3 and 10.2 T4, and the doses go up, and they'll have people dose 2, 3, 4 times a day to try and mimic the best thyroid pattern they get. But we don't. We're very lazy here. We just like to throw T4 at people and then keep increasing the T4 until they get the response they want, and we'll just keep going up.
What time do you like take T4?
I just take mine all in the
In
morning.
the
I'm
morning,
lazy.
bastard, yeah.
Dan?
There is definitely a huge variance in what each individual sees from 25 micrograms of T3, more so than I actually thought. I always knew there would be a variance, but I'd always presumed some people might see 5 to 6, some people might see 6 to 7, but I've seen a couple both take 25 micrograms of T3 out of the same packet, one get between 6 and 7 and one get fucking 12.
Yeah, man.
Which is like double the fucking range. So I never understood. Well, I didn't realise how much of that genetic variance in dosing there was up until a year or so ago.
And there's
Do you
use of
not
time.
think T4 year round is the thing? I'm really enjoying it, to be honest.
I've always ran T4 year round for quite a long period of time, and my whole reason is it's almost just like a crutch. If you know you're keeping your T4 levels high, you can guarantee you're getting the most amount of conversion to T3 if you're healthy, and it's not shutting down your thyroid per se. So I know 100 micrograms of T4 tends to put my levels at between 19 and 20, and that seems to put my T3 at around 5 to 5.2, which is better than it is without. And I'm not causing how I would see as a direct shutdown. So I don't see any real risk or concerns personally. And I just see that it's a positive benefit based on blood work. It just keeps me in a consistent place. And my thyroid, my whole family is overweight. When I got my thyroid checked before I took T3 or T4, and I managed to blag a free T3, both were low, and they always seem to be low. So it just seems to make sense for me to keep it in, and I don't see it causing the thyroid shutdown, so long-term use being an issue. But that's just my own sort of.
But then in a prep setting, obviously, we use T3 in an exact dose that we require or we specify at a given time in prep. But then where's the place for T4? Because it's a gamble, because you don't necessarily know accurately how much it's converting. So what's the use of T4 when you could just use the dose of T3 that you require to keep fat loss or your metabolism consistent? Because obviously you see nowadays it's common, isn't it, to run T4 and T3. Ultimately, if you're trying to run 25 mcg of T3 as an example, why would you then want to run 100 mcg of, say, T4, which is a gamble of how that converts and increasing more than 25, because you only want 25 in place. You can control that specifically.
My reasoning for keeping it in, and I can't remember the exact sciencey stuff. It was Broderick and then Alex Kickle posted some stuff a while ago, and I'd seen someone else, Scott Stevenson did, that having good T4 levels is important for other mechanisms within the body.
Okay.
So we see a natural decline when we're in a deficit of T4, and we know that some drugs can reduce. Because I'm of your thought, Pan, in terms of direct thyroid control, ain't no point messing about with T4 for that when you can just take T3 and get exactly what you need. So for a long time, I never bothered with T4 for direct that in the prep. I would just use T3. But Scott Stevenson posted some stuff, and then Broderick and Alex did. The T4 is actually quite important for some other mechanisms going on. So I see the reason. And then as Dan was saying, and I've said this for a long time in terms of what thyroid clinics do, and I think we should always look to see what the very clever professionals do, because being an endocrinologist, I would say, is probably one of the more high in knowledge, or you have to be a certain particular type of clever to understand the endocrine system and what's going on with that. If they feel running T3 and T4 in a certain ratio is always best, then it would make sense to me to keep it up in a prep setting for us as well.
I find running T4 higher.
Yeah. It's just like a crutch, isn't it? It's just a bit of self-support, I see, as it just makes sense to have it in.
I listened to what Broderick says, and when Broderick was talking about it, he made a lot of sense. And I watched the same podcast like 3 times, and he was like, "So you got your muscle cell." He goes, "Why would you not want to use T4? Why would you not want to use all 4 if you've got all 4? Because they work obviously synergistically, right?" And he said, "You've got your gear going there saying, look, just hypothetically, let's repair the tissue quicker. Your GH is going there saying, right, let's create new satellite cells to obviously whatever, create a larger muscle. You then got insulin saying, well, here's more food. And your T4 saying, okay, let me regulate my metabolism so I can make the fucking everything there work better." So it doesn't, when he said it like that and how he explains things, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, he's awesome at explaining stuff and breaking it down for stupid people.
I have found that recently in a lot of clients' preps, or just even diet phases, the higher T4 even by itself just because gives a better reward than adding the T3 in at 25. So I've been taking the T4 up to 150 and then adding the T3 in later. And I'm just finding to get better results.
150 is miles.
So that's what I've stopped. Really?
Quite a lot of people don't get to 18 or 20, that close top range from 100 micrograms of T4.
No.
Like, I know I do, but I keep seeing quite a lot of people taking 100 micrograms of T4 and it's only really putting them sort of mid-range or just underneath, and they will need 150 to put their T, which then runs in line with what you're saying, Riz, because if you need 150 to put you at the top end of the range, that is going to then give more T4 to be converted to T3. Yeah. Obviously, you're restricted by, we all will only convert so much, but the more you've got, at least you know you're maximising your conversion potential.
So my blood's here on 100 micrograms of T4. TSH came back at 1.28, free T3 5.6, free thyroxine 20.1.
So you're good. Yeah. So what you're seeing there is you're at the top of range of T4, and I think the range ends at 6.4 with T3.
You're right there.
So not only is your free thyroxine good, you're getting a good conversion as well, Riz. So I would say there would be no point for you going from 100 to 150. It wouldn't make sense.
I was just about to increase it tomorrow.
Whereas Dan, you don't see that from 100, do you? You need 150 to see that.
Well, I had a client.
Wow.
I know.
Could be
I've
fake
never
T4
seen
though.
Well, is that real T4, Dan?
Yeah. You'll have to let us know what that comes back as, because that will be interesting to see if it changes things.
So you run your T3 on prep, Dan, before bed?
I don't even find having caffeine near mine affects my result, because for a long time I always take mine. I leave mine next to my bed, so I take it out of bed. I roll out of bed and I neck my T4 and whatever. And then I was having CV burn like 30 minutes after it for quite a while. Yeah, when I check my blood, my T4 was always about the same. What do you mean? Yeah, maybe.
I think it's a really good point, because when obviously Dee takes T4 and Romana said to her, I want you taking it in the morning without coffee. So Dee wakes up, she has the T4, she has a shower, whatever, it takes about 7 hours. And there's been a drastic change in her physique and the food's actually gone up. So Dan, I think could it be that females are more yeah.
Science-wise, caffeine has a direct negative impact on T4, like in almost all cases, without a shadow of a doubt. I think that's the doctor's first advice when they prescribe it: do not take for caffeine.
Yeah, do you think women are more? Yeah, true.
Cool. Right, boys, I need to go eat.
Yeah, I think that's just done, boys.
Right, listen, I'm going to stop it. Just wait 1 second.